According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, national parks are an area of special, scenic, historical, or scientific importance set aside and maintained by a national government and in the United States by an act of Congress.
In 1969, the IUCN declared a national park to be a relatively large area with the following characteristics. One or several ecosystems not materially altered by human exploitation and occupation, where plants and animal species, geomorphical sites, and habitats are of specific educational and recreational interest, or which contain a natural landscape of great beauty.
Highest authority of the country has taken steps to prevent or eliminate exploitation or occupation as soon as possible in the whole area and to effectively enforce the respect of ecological, geomorphological, or aesthetic features which have led to its establishment and
visitors are allowed to enter under special conditions for inspirational, educative, cultural, and recreative purposes.
In 1971, these criteria were further expanded upon leading to more clear and defined benchmarks to evaluate a national park. These include the minimum size of 1,000 acres within zones in which protection of nature takes precedence, statutory legal production and protection, budget and staff sufficient to provide sufficient effective protection, prohibition of exploitation of natural resources, including the development of dams, qualified by such activities as sport, fishing, the need for management, facilities, etc.
The NPS is a National Park Service, and that's the thing, they're not struggling right now. The only reason they are in danger is due to the GOP reforms threatening to privatize them. The parks are given $3 billion a year from the government for upkeep and generate nearly 5 times this, at $92 billion annually. By handing the government-controlled land to the states, the parks are put in jeopardy because oftentimes the state can't afford the upkeep, putting the park at risk for further development.
Privatization is significantly restructuring or replacing the NPS by privatizing the parks or transferring them to state control. The upkeep of the NPS has continually been cut, pushing the association to find ways to maintain the parks, such as allowing entry fees and selling land to build gift shops. Now it is being proposed to get rid of the NPS entirely and allow the parks to be privatized. Right now, there is a lot of talk about significantly restructuring or replacing the NPS by privatizing the parks or transferring them to state control. The Republican Party has called on Congress to require federal government to convey certain federally controlled public lands to the states. In July, the GOP got together to draft a document that defines the party's principles and policies. They called for the indiscriminate and immediate disposal of national public lands. This provision calls for an immediate, full-scale disposal of certain public lands without defining which lands it would apply to, leaving national parks, wilderness areas, wild refuges, and national forests apparently up for grabs and vulnerable for development, privatization, or transfer to state ownership. By turning over all federal lands to the states, some states don't have these resources to handle it or even have the willingness to manage it. And even if this caused the federal taxes to go down, the state taxes would then still go up.
Pros. Lowers taxes. It may lower the federal taxes, but it will raise the local. Ensures protection of wildlife and natural beauties, but most of it is not protected and can be sold off to be developed.
Some of these cons are that they are valuable public resources, and the NPS is given $3 billion yearly from the government, but Americans value national parks at $92 billion annually. Therefore, it's trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist.
It is the inability of Congress to work together for the public good that threatens our national parks as economic generators. Allowing sequestration or other funding cuts to be diminished, the parks would mindlessly impede America's economic recovery. National parks aren't part of the problem, they're part of the solution, and cutting or privatizing their budgets would be about as penny-wise and pound-foolish as it gets. John F. Kennedy once said, "National parks and reserves are an integral aspect of intelligent use of natural resources. It is the course of wisdom to set aside an ample portion of our natural resources as national parks and reserves, thus ensuring that future generations may know the majesty of the earth as we know it today."
There is a delight in the hard life of the open. There are no words that can tell the hidden spirit of the wilderness, that can reveal its mystery, its melancholy, and its charm. The nation behaves well if it treats the natural resources as assets, which it must turn over to the next generation, increase and not impaired in value. Conservation means development as much as it does protection. Theodore Roosevelt.